I want to talk about aircraft carriers on this presentation. The reason is today is Sunday. On Friday night, I was watching this YouTube video done by this Chinese historian scholar. he was he was trying to find out how cavalry become obsolete. And his conclusion was because the advance of machine guns and barbed wire and trench warfare in World War One, so cavalry become obsolete. And from my own observation, and all the other historians, they were talking about how battleship became obsolete once aircraft came into existence. And air power, especially naval air power, had made battleship became obsolete. So, in the context of learning the history and apply it to the future, I want to think about how naval style aircraft carrier will become obsolete in the future. On the slide, I label when will become obsolete, but in reality, it's really hard to talk about when it will be. So I'm going to talk about how, under what circumstance it will become obsolete. To talk about how aircraft carrier will become obsolete, we have to first think about what's the purpose of aircraft carriers, especially naval aircraft carriers. I can think of one. It's to project immediate continuous operational air power through the access of ocean for a given military theater. That's one. That's the major one. Second is provide movable territory for ground support, transport, and other logistics. Okay? First one is very obvious. We all know that once you have aircraft carriers, you can literally set up a mobile Air Force base, essentially, and to project air power at that given location anywhere in the world, because 70% of the planet Earth is covered by ocean. Then it's basic for anybody to think that to project air power in a very immediate sense, you need aircraft carriers. Okay, so that's one major advantage of having aircraft carriers. And second, of course, is provide ground support. You can launch helicopters, you can launch transport aircraft, or you can retrieve large amount of civilians for a given territory. I know Americans did that back in the Vietnam War to basically have evacuate a bunch of civilians in Vietnam. When the Vietnam War was coming to a close. So that's the second reason. Then let's talk about the circumstance where how naval aircraft carrier will become obsolete or decline. You will be replaced by something better on the ocean, okay? Something that can project air power faster, cheaper, higher volume, and easily defended. Today, aircraft carrier is expensive, okay? It's fast. You can project air power really fast, but it's expensive. And the volume, it's okay. But today, with sophisticated aircraft and very powerful missiles and weapons, you don't need large amount of aircraft to project air power. So volume is not really a good argument that a higher volume is not a good argument that aircraft carrier become obsolete. It just, in today's sense, you really don't have 20 FA-18s going to a battlefield. Lastly, aircraft carrier is really hard to defend by itself. That's why you have task forces. You have submarine defending it. You have destroyer. You have cruisers. You got small boats. You got phalanx guns. You got air C2 air missile defenses against incoming missiles. So that's one. Second one is that air power become obsolete itself. How would that happen? Let's say, for example, that you have space-based spacecrafts that can both operate in space and planet's atmosphere. At that moment, you don't need atmospherical military force anymore. You just deploy everything to space, and you station around all the entire planet with all the space stations or space-borne carriers. So you don't need naval aircraft carrier anymore. For example, like Star Trek, their shuttlecraft can traverse both space and atmospherical conditions or environments. Okay, that's one. A second, naval power itself become obsolete. You can traverse the entire planet without accessing the ocean. You don't need aircraft carrier anymore. Naval aircraft carrier. One good example I can see is the helicarriers in the Avenger movies. And let's say, okay, this is the third point. Project air power from your own territory without accessing both outer space and the oceans, or even through the atmospherical environment, while retaining faster, cheaper, easily defended, difficult to detect characteristics. I can think of two things: long-range unmanned weapons and hypersonic missiles, hypersonic weapons. One of the advantages of having aircraft carrier loitering around a given territory is that you can continuously project air power over a long period of time. A month, 2 months probably. If you can constantly supply your aircraft carrier with ammunition, fuel, and all the other necessities. But let's say if I can project air power and unmanned weapons over a long distance, and it can loiter around that theater for more than a week, and you just continuously replenish it, you don't need aircraft carrier anymore. Okay. Second is hypersonic weapons. If I can reach anywhere on Earth in less than 10 minutes, or even less than 30 minutes, why do I need aircraft carriers? Yeah. So here is the thing. My prediction is the ability to project air power over a given location and have that air power loiter over that location for a long period of time. That characteristic of the naval aircraft carrier doctrine will be replaced pretty soon, I think, if hypersonic weapons and spaceborne weapons and unmanned drones will become even more sophisticated and cheaper and can be manufactured in high volumes. Then that part of naval aircraft carrier will become obsolete. The second one is the transport and logistic. That's going to take That's going to take a while. Okay, unless you can send unmanned, a long-range transport aircraft in a pretty short period. Let's say within the next 10 years that those kind of technology will exist, then that part of the aircraft carrier will also become obsolete. That's all I have for today. Thanks.